Did you just finish watching The Witcher on Netflix? Did you get so attached to a set of characters that the thought of having to wait over a year to find out what happens next is killing you? Do you have no idea what to read or watch now that you've watched all of The Witcher? Today I am going to be recommending some books that I think you should read now that you've watched all of The Witcher on Netflix. Cole and I just recently finished watching The Witcher and I honestly really loved it. I had no knowledge of The Witcher story at all because I've never read the books. I have never played the video game. I didn't really know what to expect, but I watched it and I loved it, and when I finished it, I had no idea what to do with myself. I get really invested in shows very quickly and very easily, and the fact that there were only 8 episodes of The Witcher to watch was very sad for me because I wanted more immediately. I just wanted to know what was going to happen with these characters. I wanted to stay in this world, and so I have been struggling a little bit trying to figure out what I'm going to read next, what I'm going to watch next, and I thought today I would make a little video about some of my personal recommendations for if you are like me and don't know where to go next after watching The Witcher. I also have a few books to talk about at the end that I actually haven't read but that I think would be good places for me to go next based on what I know of those stories. So this is like part recommendations video, part TBR, and I am excited. So if you know nothing about The Witcher like I did, then I'm going to give you a very brief synopsis, but I'm going to say that this is a story and a show that I think is best to go into knowing very little. I mean, unless you've played the video games or you've read the books, then I think that you should go into it not knowing very much, because half of the fun of the show for me was figuring out what was going on in each episode and seeing how all these storylines were going to tie together in the end. And so I'm going to give you a brief synopsis, and that is that the main plot of The Witcher is about a man named Geralt of Rivia. He is a witcher, which means that he is basically a mutant that has some special abilities. He's got like superhuman strength, and he is able to drink these potions, and he gets all these different kinds of abilities, and things happen to him, and he's like basically a superhuman, and he is super powerful, and witchers are very rare. In fact, he is one of the last witchers left in this world. There are a couple of other characters whose stories interweave with Geralt's throughout the course of the show, and I'm assuming the books and the video game as well. Essentially, it is about Geralt looking for his destiny, trying to figure out where he's meant to be in this world, and there is also a war on the brink, and so there's a lot of stuff happening, and it is really hard to kind of describe, but like I said, if you don't know anything, don't do a lot of research. Just watch the show and uncover the craziness that is The Witcher for yourself, because like I said, I didn't know anything about it and I ended up really loving it. For super dedicated fans of The Witcher who have read the books and play the video games, I'm sure I just gave a really crap synopsis, but that was kind of my takeaway of the story and how I am basing my recommendations. So the obvious place to go after watching The Witcher is to actually read the books. They are a series of adult fantasy novels that actually were originally written in Polish by Andrzej Sapkowski. The first book in the series is The Last Wish, and this is actually a collection of short stories. From my understanding, the first couple of books in the series are actually collections of short stories, and then like books 3 through 7, I believe, are full-length novels, but the short stories kind of set up the world and set up the characters, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, the first series, the first season of the show is based on a couple of the short stories in this first book, The Last Wish. I obviously can't say that this is a recommendation because I haven't read it yet, but this is probably the first place I'm going to go now that I have finished watching The Witcher, because I am kind of desperate to know more about these characters and more about this world. I got really invested in these stories that I was watching, and I loved the way that everything was playing out on TV, and so I would really love to actually read the books and get a little bit more context for this world and these characters in this story. I feel like the first season being only 8 episodes, it's such a small scope of what's going to happen in the grand scheme of the whole plot, because like I said, I believe the book series is up to like book 7 or 8 at this point. So there is actually so much story left to experience and uncover, and I feel like I don't want to have to wait for every season of the show to come out for me to kind of get the whole scope of the story. I think that I want to read the books. So I'm very excited to eventually start The Last Wish. I think it being a collection of short stories is going to be such a great introduction and way to get into the series, and I am very excited. But like I said, that is not necessarily a recommendation because I haven't read it yet. So my first real recommendation, if you have watched The Witcher and you are looking for something similar or has similar themes, similar characters, then my first recommendation is Finnegan of the Rock by Melina Marchetta. This is actually a YA fantasy novel. It is the first in a series. This is about a character, a boy named Finnegan. When he was younger, his best friend, who was the prince of the kingdom that they were living in called Lumitere, the prince and his entire family was killed in a massacre. And several years later, like 10 years down the line, Finnegan is on the road. He's traveling with his mentor, and he starts to hear the whispers that maybe the heir to the throne of Lumitere actually survived the massacre. And so he and his mentor set out to find the lost heir of Lumitere and restore their kingdom. Some of the reasons that Finnegan of the Rock is similar to The Witcher are that Finnegan and Geralt are kind of similar characters. They're almost a little bit loner. They are on the road looking for their destiny. They both fall in love with a woman who might hold the key to everything, and they're both very strong-willed and just dynamic characters. So even though The Witcher is definitely adult and Finnegan of the Rock is more YA, I think that if you enjoyed one, you'd enjoy the other. And I think that if you like The Witcher and you want a book to read that is so underrated and needs more love and attention, then Finnegan of the Rock is the book you need to go to. The next recommendation is kind of an obvious recommendation, I think. If you were to look up a list of recommendations similar to The Witcher, then this is definitely a book that would be on that list, and that is The Final Empire by Brandon Sanderson. This is the first book in the Mistborn trilogy, which is an adult fantasy series all about a world where the magic is based on the consumption and use of different metals, and some people can control one metal, but there are the rare few that have control of all the metals, and those people are called Mistborns. The main character of the series is a girl named Vin, who has just recently discovered that she is a Mistborn and has to kind of figure out how to harness her power. And she is taken in and aided in her training by another Mistborn named Kelsier, and they kind of form this student-teacher, father-daughter kind of relationship, and watching that form over the course of the book is one of the reasons that I love The Final Empire so much. I have recently discovered that one of my favorite tropes is like men who are loners and don't really want to have companions or care to have friends in the world become dads. And I think that that is going to kind of be the dynamic of the relationship between Geralt and Ciri going forward in the show. I obviously can't speak to the future because the rest of the show isn't out yet, but I feel like if you want to get an idea of what kind of relationship they are going to have in the future, then you should read The Final Empire, because the relationship between Vin and Kelsier is one of my absolute favorite relationships in any literature. I love like that found family, like that orphan character finding someone who is almost like a surrogate parent, and it's just, like I said, one of my favorite tropes, and I feel like it is the perfect recommendation. I don't even care about how similar the storylines are between The Witcher and The Final Empire. I am solely recommending this based on the relationship between Kelsier and Vin and what I believe the relationship of Geralt and Ciri is going to be. My next recommendation is Graceling by Kristen Kishore. This is another young adult fantasy book. It is about a world where people are born with special powers called graces. And these graces can be anything from being really good at cooking or singing to being able to hunt and fight really well. And the main character of Graceling is a girl named Katza, who is graced with the ability to kill people. At the beginning of the book, there start to be some rumors and some turmoil in this realm that the kingdom that she lives in is in. And so she decides to set out to figure out exactly what is going on in this world. She goes on a little bit of a road trip with another character, a boy named Poe, who is graced with the ability to fight really well. The reason that I think that this is a perfect recommendation to go alongside The Witcher is because I see so many similarities between the characters of Katza and Ciri. In regards to The Witcher, we don't really know what the importance of Ciri's character is just yet. I mean, it's obvious that she has this crazy magical ability that she doesn't know anything about, and she has to figure out her place in the world and kind of find her destiny as well. And I feel like that is so similar to Katza's journey in Graceling. She has this ability that she doesn't fully understand, and watching her like go through this book and kind of come to understand her power and come to understand her importance in this world and in the lives of the people that she interacts with is so fantastic. And I feel like it does really kind of mirror Ciri's journey in The Witcher, and I can see it continuing to mirror that going forward in future seasons. I do hate to recommend books based on speculation in my own brain, but I feel like I've watched enough fantasy shows and read enough fantasy books that I can kind of predict where it might go in the future, and I feel like Katza and Ciri have a lot of similarities, and I'm so intrigued to continue to learn more about Ciri. And if you liked Ciri's character in The Witcher, then I definitely think that you will like Graceling. My last proper recommendation is a little bit of a weird one, and I feel like I'm gonna have to do a little bit of explaining to make you understand exactly why I think that this is the perfect book to pick up after watching and loving The Witcher. And that is Cersei by Madeline Miller. This is another adult fantasy book about Cersei, who is one of the characters in Greek mythology. She is the daughter of Helios, and she has a lot of magical ability in her. She is very powerful. At the beginning of her story, at the beginning of the book, Cersei, she kind of commits this unforgivable crime, and so her father exiles her to this island to live out the rest of her days. She lives alone on this island, and we see her interacting with all these different characters from Greek mythology, and we see her kind of grow into her power, and we see her kind of develop into this really strong, amazing, independent character. I think the reason that this is the perfect book to read after watching The Witcher is because of its episodic nature. So obviously The Witcher is a TV show. It is broken up into episodes, and each episode, it's a through story, obviously, like there is an overarching plot, but something specific happens in every single episode. We see Geralt in different situations, we see Yennefer in different situations, we see Ciri in different situations in every single episode. And Cersei is kind of like that, in that every chapter is almost like its own little short story, its own little vignette of whatever's going on in Cersei's life at that time. And while there is kind of an overarching plot in Cersei as well, it's very episodic throughout. I also think that if you love the character Yennefer in The Witcher, then you will also really like Cersei, because Yennefer is this super powerful mage, and she has so much ability, and she doesn't really know how to harness it just yet, and she has to spend a lot of the show figuring out how to understand and control her power. And I feel like Cersei is a little bit the same way. She spends a lot of the book kind of coming into her power and figuring out exactly what her limits are. I just think that even though it's not like this direct correlation between the two stories, I think that even though Cersei is very light on the fantasy, I feel like if you like The Witcher, if you like the characters and the way that that story plays out, then you could definitely enjoy Cersei as well. Those are all of my kind of like proper recommendations, but like I said, I do have a few books that I want to talk about that I think are going to be really good books for me to read now that I've watched The Witcher, and in turn could also be good recommendations for you as well. First up, I have The Name of the Wind by Patrick Rothfuss. I do have a copy of this book, but I have it lent out to my brother right now. I think that this is going to be a really good book to read because, like The Final Empire, like Brandon Sanderson, Patrick Rothfuss shows up on almost every like fantasy recommendations list ever, and I feel like if you were to look up a list of books similar to The Witcher, then this one would probably be on it. I actually don't know much about the plot of The Name of the Wind, except for that it follows a character named Kvothe as he comes into some kind of magical ability, goes to school, harnesses that, and fights evil, I'm guessing. So I feel like there could be some correlation between Geralt and Kvothe, but like I said, I don't know for sure because I haven't read the book and I don't know a ton about it. But I feel like this would be a book that I would see recommended if I like The Witcher, which obviously I did. Another book that I think could be similar to The Witcher, although very different, is Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo. Obviously, this is more of like an urban fantasy. It is set in our world, but there is magic in our world. I think that, like some of the other books on my recommendations list, I feel like I'm going to see a lot of similarities between Geralt and the main character of this book, whose name is Alex Stern. I feel like they both have some trauma in their past that they're trying to overcome. They are trying to solve the mysteries of the world, and other than that, I think it's pretty relatable because it's fantasy and there's going to be magic. It was on the Goodreads recommendations. If you have read the Witcher books and you like them, then pick up Ninth House. It could just be because this book is new and it's exciting and everybody's reading it right now, but I'm hoping that there might be some similarities between the two stories, and I might find something in this book that will fill the hole that The Witcher has left for me. And lastly, a book that I feel like could be a really good book to pick up after watching The Witcher, and a book that I'm very excited to read and has been recommended to me so many times, is The City of Brass by S.A. Chakraborty. This is another adult fantasy book that is based on Egyptian mythology, and the main character of this story accidentally summons a djinn, and she has to go on this journey to figure out exactly why this djinn was summoned and what kind of power she has, and kind of save the world, I think. I don't know much about it, like I said already. But I feel like this could be really similar to The Witcher, because actually in one of the episodes of The Witcher, Geralt summons a djinn. And if that's not a really good correlation between the two stories, then I don't know what is. Also, a loner main character trying to figure out her place in the world. Geralt is a loner main character trying to figure out his place in the world, which is, I guess, something that I also really enjoy in books. So this is another one that I'm hoping to get to very soon. Maybe, hopefully, one of my next reads. I am very excited about this one. Like I said, been recommended to me so many times, and I'm really hoping that it will also fill that Witcher void that is in my life right now. So those are some books that I think that you should read after watching and loving The Witcher, and also some books that I'm hoping to read after watching and loving The Witcher. However, I am still at a little bit of a loss as to what to watch next. I really love watching fantasy shows, and Cole and I have no idea what to start now that we finished The Witcher. So if you have any recommendations for TV shows, movies, anything like that that is similar to The Witcher that you think that I would really enjoy, then leave those down in the comments, because I want more. I want more media to consume. And also books. Like, if you have any other book recommendations that you think I definitely need to get to or definitely should have included on this list, leave those down in the comments as well. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you'll go and watch The Witcher if you haven't, and I will see you again very soon. Bye!